Hi, I'm Brendan and welcome to Arcbow Music Publishing. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel because we have a video every day and each day is structured so that it's the same type of video for each day of the week. So for example, on a Monday we have Jasper Jefferson playing an acoustic instrumental on the guitar. And Sunday, which is today, we have Brendan's Random Thoughts. Now that's a scary concept. Anyway, today's theory is that all fashion has a 20-year cycle. And I'm not talking like fashion as in apparel necessarily. I'm talking pop culture, like music, art, clothing, language, social expectation, and outrage, for example. I came up with this theory when I was a lot younger, so I've had the opportunity to witness more than one full cycle of the 20-year period. And I'm consistently surprised by how accurate this theory is. It breaks down like this. If you take any time period and subtract 20 years, the 2 years will have an affinity with each other. So for example, if you take 1964, the Beatles were somewhat popular, you could say, in that year. So my theory suggests that 1964 would have quite an affinity with the year 1984. I don't mean the book 1984, which is incidentally a great book. I mean the year 1984. So in the year 1984, the Beatles would have been quite popular again, but not in the same way. It's like there's a half-life. And the theory suggests that contemporary society has changed, and by moving through the 20 years prior, they've learned from all the things that have come since that. So they do have a strong affection for 1964 in 1984, but it's a postmodern interpretation that they're bending those ideas from 20 years prior into a new paradigm. It's like it's a new generation seeking the same archetypical heroes. I'm not saying that mop tops would have come back in 1984 exactly the same. It would have been a new mop top. But I don't know, mop tops would have, a postmodern mop top would have given individuals within society that same feeling. So not only does the theory have a 20-year cyclic nature to it, where it goes back to affection within 20 years, there's a 10-year cycle in it, in that if you take any period, 10 years either side would have been a strong reaction against that year. So if you take 1964 again, 1974 would have been quite at odds in terms of what was popular, what was trendy, than 1964. So in 1974, for example, there would have been a strong reaction against 1964, and you would have found that the type of things that were fashionable in 1964 were pretty uncool by 1974. And the same reaction by the time you got to 1984, those 1974 interpretations of cool were back on its head, and there was back to being an affinity with 1964 again. So if we were to graph the theory, the way that I've explained it, I would probably graph it like this. And I don't really like the graph like that, but that's how I've explained it. I want the graph to look like this. And I'm not sure that it does. I haven't really thought the theory through to get it to look like that. I'm sure someone who's much more intelligent than I am would be able to do that. But also, I think that the graph, we have to take the half-life into consideration. Perhaps there's a longer cycle within it that the half-life goes like this, down to a watered out point in history, and then starts to build up again. Perhaps it's a reactionary cycle. Mathematically, it would be cool if it was a 100-year cycle. I haven't really thought it out enough to confirm that, but it would be really cool if the graph went down and went like this over a 100-year cycle, and then we were back to starting again. It would make our calendar make more sense. So I can remember thinking back in like 2010 that next year, based on my theory, we're all going to be wearing flannelette shirts again, because Kurt Cobain was such an influential figure in 1991. So the theory would suggest that we would be looking for that same feelings in 2011. And I remember thinking, it's not going to come back. The flannelette shirt's not going to come back. So anyway, I walk into a shop a year later in 2011 and I see designer flannelette shirts, a new modern flannelette shirt, and I think, oh my goodness, it's happened again. It always surprises me. And if you had a look at 2001, Kurt Cobain would have been uncool in the mainstream like society. So Britney Spears and Backstreet Boys were quite popular then, which are definitely the antithesis to Kurt Cobain's aesthetic, I guess. So anyway, what did you think of the theory? Leave it in the comments below. How can I improve this theory? And don't forget to subscribe to Arkbow Music Publishing for a video every day. And I will look to see you next Sunday for another random thought. See you next time.